Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna and pranams, dear devotees. Thank you for joining us in the daily evening session of reading of Ocean of Mercy. So we'll begin our class now. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktichara Swami Niti Namine Snigdha Cheta Supradeta Vakiyam Chara Samhitam Prabhupada Pranami Bhaktichara. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deva Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shravapadi Paschatya Deshatari Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So welcome dear devotees. So we'll start from where we left yesterday. Yesterday we remember how Prabhupada spoke about a very important incident in his life where he said how when going to the Mayapur land, then Prabhupada didn't stop at the Samadhi of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and then some of his god brothers criticized him for that, for not stopping and paying respects, to his spiritual master's Samadhi. And when Srila Prabhupada heard, then Prabhupada said that, do you think that I'm ever separated from my spiritual master? That he's always with me and I'm always with them. I'm never separated even for a moment. So this is the connection we want with our spiritual master. And if we read, one way to build that connection is to read about him, to know more about him, and to have, and as we read, then we develop more love and attachment to our spiritual master. And innumerable purports, Srila Prabhupada writes that the spiritual life means becoming a faithful servant of your spiritual master. And one who becomes that, then he quotes also innumerable times this verse I read today. I can't get it out of my consciousness that yesterday we parabhaktir yatha deve tatha guru tasyati kathita hi artha prakashante hi mahatmana. That the real import of the scriptures is revealed to one who has unflinching faith both in the spiritual master and Krishna. And in one of the purports, Prabhupada, not one of the purports, he gives different meanings. And in one he says, who has complete faith in Krishna, and one who is guided by the spiritual master, like that. He just gives a twist. So our hope and expectation and desire also is this, that by reading is Ocean of Mercy, we get attached to the feet of Srila Gurudev. So we'll start the reading session now, and please raise your hands, those who wish to read. So we'll begin. Okay, first is Shashi Mataji. So, okay. So I will do the screen sharing, and we'll start the session.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yeah. My service of translating Srila Prabhupada's book into Bengali gave me a easy and regular access to him. When he came to Mayapur, however, I was busy helping build the long building and completing the printing of Bhagavaner Katha. So I saw him only in the evenings, when he gave darshana sitting on a bench in front of the Lotus building. I had to go to the printers in Calcutta one day, and when I returned the next morning, I was told that Prabhupada had asked about me. I was excited to hear that. He said he had noticed my absence, and I ran to his room and asked him whether there was anything he wanted me to do. When he asked where I had gone, I broke the news that I had collected his early writings from Gauriya Patrika, and under the guidance of Jayapataka Maharaj and Pankratna Prabhu was printing them as a book. Srila Prabhupada was clearly pleased and asked how I had found the articles. I explained that during one of my visits to the Devananda Gauriya Matha, I had found them in a Gauriya Patrika, which I had discovered he had edited. Prabhupada smiled in acknowledgement and asked when the book would be ready. I told him that I had wanted to offer it to him when he had returned from Bhubaneswar, but that the printer had taken too long. Yes, he said, in India everything takes a long time. It is so difficult to do things here. Then for some reason, it occurred to me that when I went to Calcutta, I sometimes visited the sweet shops. Srila Prabhupada, I began. It is stated in Sri Chaitanya Chandramrit that if one cannot control his tongue, he cannot get Krishna. I find it so difficult to control my tongue. Take Krishna Prasada, he replied. Krishna had made a very nice arrangement to control one's tongue. Krishna Baro Boro Dayamay Koribe Jiva Jaya Ava Prasad Ana Dile Bhai. In order to conquer your tongue, Krishna has given his prasad. So that is the way to control your tongue. Srila Prabhupada, I confessed, when I go to Calcutta, sometimes I go to the sweet shops and eat sweets. To my utter amazement, he said, that is also Krishna Prasad. Krishna very mercifully gave us all these foodstuffs. He has given us everything we need, and we simply have to accept it all as his mercy, his prasad. Later, when I related the incident to senior devotee, he advised me that although Prabhupada had mercifully given such a broad vision, I should not take undue advantage of it. One afternoon, Srila Prabhupada called me to his room, gave me a stack of Bengali letters and asked me to reply to them. I read them out to him and he told me what points to make in response. There was no Bengali typewriter at that time. So I handwrote the drafts, brought them to Prabhupada and read them aloud to him. He made corrections and then I wrote out the replies to his letterhead on his letterhead and took them for him to sign. When all the Bengali letters have been answered, Prabhupada asked me whether I knew how to write in Hindi. I said that I could, but that my Hindi handwriting was not very nice. He just smiled and said, actually, nobody's Hindi handwriting is nice. And then he told me a joke. Once a man received a letter from his friend in Hindi, and he wrote back to him saying that the next time he wrote to him, he should send him the train fare to go see him. When his friend asked why, the man wrote back saying that in order to understand what his friend had written, he would have to go see him. Only he could decipher what he had written. We both laughed, and Srila Prabhupada gave me a stack of Hindi letters. His joke had given me a little confidence, and thereafter I replied to his letters in Hindi as well as Bengali. One another day, I went to Prabhupada with a stack of letters when he was on the roof receiving his morning massage. I read out each letter and took notes how to reply. Then I remained while his personal servant Harish Sauri Dasa gave him massage. I wanted to be near Prabhupada as long as I could. Seeing that I was not leaving, Srila Prabhupada spoke to me. Just offer this life to Krishna. For many, many lifetimes, you have been trying to enjoy, but you can see that you are still not satisfied. Just offer this life to Krishna and don't get involved with any woman. This
Hare Krishna.
attraction. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Madhaji. So, Ronnie Prabhu, you can go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Just offer this life to Krishna. For many, many lifetimes, you have been trying to enjoy, but you can see that you are still not satisfied. Just offer this life to Krishna and don't get involved with any woman. This attraction for women is an arrangement of Maya, the Lord's illusory energy, to keep the living entities tied down to the material nature. Therefore, the material nature is called Maithuna Agara, a prison house of sex desire. In this material nature, everyone is attracted to the opposite sex, and that is the chain with which one is tied down to this prison house. But what is this sex desire? It is like an itch. One thinks that by scratching at that itch, he will get pleasure. But the more he scratches, the more it itches, and eventually it starts to bleed and hurts him. But they are so foolish that they consider it to be the greatest enjoyment. A camel eats thorns, and his tongue and palate gets cut and starts to bleed. The camel tastes its own blood, but thinks that the thorns are so delicious. Through this act of sex, a man loses the very essence of his body, his semen, and he thinks, oh, how delightful this act is. He becomes prepared to even sacrifice his life for that momentary pleasure. That is Maya's trick. With this sex desire, Maya is tying the living entities down to this material nature. Therefore, one who wants to become free from the bondage of this material existence, one must become free from sex desire. Srila Prabhupada spoke for quite a while, urging me to surrender to Krishna. Finally, he told me, just offer this life to Krishna and see what happens. Even if nothing happens, what is the loss? After all, it is just one life out of so many. In my mind, I vowed, yes, Srila Prabhupada, I am offering myself to you. I know that if I do that, I will achieve the ultimate perfection of my existence. One morning, I saw a bright-looking personality walking with Bhavananda Maharaj. There was something striking about this devotee. I just could not keep my eyes off him. Tirthpad, who was standing next to me, said that it was Tamal Krishna Goswami. He is one of the most prominent leaders of our movement. I had heard about Tamal Krishna Maharaj. He was a hero of ISKCON. He had joined in San Francisco when the movement was in its infancy and almost right away assumed the leadership role. Since then, Srila Prabhupada had called on him to lead his most important projects. When the movement was growing on America's west coast, Prabhupada appointed him president of the Los Angeles Temple. When ISKCON spread to England and George Harrison became involved, Prabhupada sent him there. When Krishna consciousness was gaining a foothold in India, Prabhupada made him the governing body commission, GBC, there. And when Prabhupada experienced difficulties in getting land in Mayapur, it was Tamal Krishna who overcame the obstacles and acquired the land. Then he organized the greatest book distribution and devotee making program in ISKCON, the Radha Damodar Traveling Sankirtan Party, which was distributing thousands of books, making hundreds of devotees. Just the sight of Tamal Krishna Maharaj filled me with awe and reverence. I offered my obeisances from a distance. In the afternoon, when I was with Srila Prabhupada in his room, Maharaj walked in and Prabhupada's face lit up with a bright smile. Right away, they began to talk intimately. Tamal Krishna told Prabhupada that he had relinquished all his managerial responsibilities in order to be with His Divine Grace and serve him. Srila Prabhupada was very pleased to hear that. Then they talked about the deprogramming issue in America. The affluent parents of some devotees were hiring thugs to forcibly abduct their sons and daughters from ISKCON. The abductions were being contested in American court, but the judgment so far had supported the deprogrammers and parents. Srila Prabhupada was extremely concerned and wanted to hear about the situation in detail. Maharaj told him that Adi Keshav Swami was handling an important case in New York and asked whether he should call for him. He was currently in Mayapur. Prabhupada sent me to get Adi Keshav Swami from his room, just a floor above. Maharaj was only in his early 20s, but he was already a sannyasi and a GBC, the youngest in his ISKCON. His then stature could initially give me an image of weakness, but his upright demeanor, bright smile, and vibrant speech all served to correct that mistaken impression. He had joined the movement when he was only 70, but due to his abilities and achievements, he had risen to ISKCON's highest ranks. When I returned with Adi Keshav Swami to Srila Prabhupada's room, several senior devotees were already there. After offering obeisances, Maharaj told Srila Prabhupada about the case. Prabhupada became angry, his tone assertive. He suggested that we should take it as an opportunity to tell everyone about the purpose of our mission. In the early
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. So those who want to read can raise their hands so we can invite other guests also. Okay. Next is Neha Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Prabhuji, the screen is not visible. Yes. In the early days in India, I remembered Srila Prabhupada had taken advantage of every opportunity to speak or write about Krishna consciousness. Now, using the allegations of brainwashing, he pointed out that the purpose of human intelligence was to understand the difference between dead and living matter. He went so far as to say that prior to joining the movement, the devotees had not been utilizing their intelligence. It was as if they did not actually have any brains. So there was no question of brainwashing. He was not washing their brains but giving them brains. Adi Keshwa reported that the deprogrammers had formed a group called Return to Personal Choice. Prabhupada retorted, they are kidnapping them, torturing them, and forcing them to change their intelligent choice. And they call it personal choice? Maharaj showed Prabhupada a picture of the deprogrammers returning someone to their so-called personal choice, the mother, father, and kidnappers dragging the devotee. They called it rescuing. Srila Prabhupada wondered aloud how such an act of force could be accepted by anyone as a personal choice. Tamal Krishna Maharaj clarified that the US government considered that parents had the right to dictate the choices of their offspring irrespective of age, the decisive criteria being whether their son or daughter had lost his or her mental capacity. When Prabhupada inquired about the legality of such actions, Adi Keshwa explained that American law contained a provision called conservatorship. Anyone who was determined to be of unsound mind or body, or to be addicted to drugs, or to have been fooled or bewildered by deceptive means could be put under conservatorship. Someone else could be given charge of the person's affairs, and he or she could be committed to a mental hospital where the deprogramming would take place. New laws were being passed to further reinforce the process. There was already one state law that permitted anyone, not just the parents or the family members, to take this kind of control. Maharaj presented a report that had been prepared by members of the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, They had held a huge conference in New York presenting a report on deprogramming, personal accounts describing how people had been kidnapped, imprisoned, beaten, tortured, and starved to force them to go back to their old lives. The report mentioned that the deprogrammers had a manual, a do it yourself deprogramming book detailing how to abduct someone and make the person give up his or her newly acquired faith. The ACLU protested that the deprogrammers were doing exactly what they were accusing the devotees of doing. They were accusing the devotees of following their guru blindly, but they were themselves following a guru, Ted Patrick, the deprogramming leader, without discrimination. Patrick was a criminal and ex-convict who had just recently been re-imprisoned after a new conviction. His followers were continuing his nefarious activities in his absence. Maharaj said that unlike the US, Canada had taken a strong position against the deprogrammers and was giving ISKCON favorable media coverage. One devotee from Boston had recently sought political asylum there after being harassed by deprogrammers, and Canadian authorities were refusing to extradite devotees to the US. They had even passed a law in parliament banning deprogrammers from Canada. In New York, Maharaj explained a girl named Murthy Vandya was abducted. The deprogrammers pulled up in a van, dragged her off the street, and drove away. When we filed kidnapping charges, they turned around and filed kidnapping charges against me, saying that we were the kidnappers, even though they had made a statement confessing that they had abducted her bodily off the street and she said I had been kidnapped. They said, "No, you don't know what you really want. You don't really want to be a Hare Krishna. So you are really being kidnapped by the Hare Krishnas." Ted Patrick and his followers target others besides the devotees, but they admitted that the devotees were the hardest to deprogram. On a TV show with Adi Keshwa Swami and a new devotee, Vasu Gopal, Patrick turned to Vasu Gopal and said, "I could deprogram him very easily." And indeed, Vasu Gopal would later become a victim of the process. But Patrick then had turned to Adi Keswa and said, "But this one, he's already ruined. I couldn't break him." They believed that once you had been a devotee for 4 or more years, your brain was finished and you couldn't be deprogrammed. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. And I remembered how Prabhupada once told jokingly, I think in US only, and he says, they are accusing us of brainwashing. And Prabhupada said, but it is right, actually, we are washing their brains. That was Prabhupada's reply. Okay, so next is Preeti Mataji. Okay, go ahead.
Hare Krishna. The ACLU report contained a list of all the devotees who had been deprogrammed. About 2/3 had returned to the movement, more than from any other group. Only brand new devotees had actually left. Devotees who had been in the movement for more than a year or two eventually found their way back. Tamal Krishna Maharaj described how after being deprogrammed and living in the material world, the person would again meet devotees who would be out distributing books. After meeting the devotees, getting a book and seeing a picture of Krishna, he or she would start to remember his or her life in Krishna consciousness and would again be attracted and return to the temple. This was exactly the case with Vasugopal, who had been deprogrammed but then had come back. Adi Keshwa told how Vasugopal had taken a look at the Krishna book and said, "Take me to the temple, I should be selling the books, not buying them." And he had immediately rejoined. Vasugopal had been subjected to terrible abuse by the deprogrammers. His case was described in Patrick's book, Let Our Children Go. One chapter dealt with the Hare Krishna movement and Vasugopal in particular. Patrick openly admitted how terribly he had to torture and abuse him to get him deprogrammed. When he was being held in his house, Adi Keshwa related, he managed to get to the phone and call me. So we went there with some of the brahmacharis from the temple and started breaking the windows and banging on the doors. As Vasugopal was trying to come to us, his brothers and relatives grabbed him and threw him against a wall. They locked him in a room and beat him ruthlessly. Ted Patrick wrote in his book that there were 25 of us, but actually we were only 5. Finally, they all came out and started to fight with us. They usually have the family members do the fighting, but the Ted Patrick came at me with a straight razor. So far, the courts had supported the deprogrammers, claiming that the abuse had been inflicted in the best interest of the victim. Since the government considered the conflict a family dispute, any interference from outside parties, including the devotees whom the person had chosen to join, was deemed inappropriate. Tamal Krishna Maharaj gave the example of an incident in Texas when a father had killed his own son in his sleep but was acquitted of murder. The court had expressed its approval for the father's actions in view of his assumption that his son had gone astray. Typically, devotees' parents and relatives were involved in their abuse, from the initial kidnapping right through the torture sessions. If the devotee hits his parents, Adikeshva continued, they say, just see how crazy he has become. In defending himself against his attackers, Vasugopal had hit his mother and run out, shouting the name of Narsimha Dev. But he had been held back by his family members and could not escape. They had locked him in a bathroom for 30 hours. But because he had tried to fight back, they had said, just see how crazy he has become. He hit his own mother, and the judge had agreed with them. After hearing all the details, Srila Prabhupada declared that we should not succumb to the pressure. We should fight, prove in open court that we were not brainwashing young devotees, but giving them brains, real intelligence, through a perfect understanding of absolute reality and ultimate wisdom. The US government and courts' opposition might seem like a stumbling block, but eventually it would become a stepping stone. As long as we knew we were serving Krishna, the all-powerful Supreme Personality of Godhead, we had nothing to fear. At the end of the day, victory was bound to be ours. Everyone in the
Krishna,
room.
thank you. Thank you. We have to give turn to the devotees also. Okay. So now next is Neha Jindal Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Everyone from there only, no?
Yes, Mataji.
Everyone in the room nodded with great determination, and I could see that under Srila Prabhupada's command, they were ready to fight it. Srila Prabhupada also illuminated everything from the scriptural point of view. He cannot free his children from the cycle of birth and death, is not a father. Krur na sa syati, swajano na sa syat, ita na sa syad, janatmi na sa syat. Devam na tatsyan na patischa sasyan na mochayad yah samupeta mrityum. One who cannot deliver his dependents from the path of repeated birth and death should never become a spiritual master, a relative, a father, a husband, a mother, or a worshipable demigod. Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.80. With the God Purnima festival approaching, devotees were coming to Mayapur from all over the world. 350 had arrived from the US on the first Boeing 747 flight to Calcutta. Srila Prabhupada had expressed concern to Tamal Krishna Maharaj that the fog and overcast skies might pose a danger for the plane's landing. But the weather had cleared up. The airport authorities had extended the runway to make room for the jumbo jet, and the 747 landed without incident. Rameshwar Swami, who was on the flight, had come directly to see Srila Prabhupada, said how wonderful it had been to fly over on a plane full of devotees. Hridayananda Goswami and Panchadravida Swami had gone to the cockpit and spoken with the pilot, who was, as this was the first 747 flight to Calcutta, the most senior pilot of Air India and the chief of the Indian Pilots Association. He had been extremely receptive, Rameshwar said, and they had preached to him for several hours. Even though the devotees had landed before dawn, a grand celebration had greeted them on their arrival. 100 dignitaries from the airlines, TV, and radio, including the general manager of Air India and his senior officers, had come to welcome them. The press took many pictures and interviewed some of the senior devotees, including Rameshwar Swami, who told them that he did not think Air India alone could bring a plane load of people to West Bengal. It was due to Lord Chaitanya's mercy that people were coming from all over the world. Some of the reporters acknowledged that credit for the trip's success actually belonged to Srila Prabhupada. The arrival of so many devotees from around the world created an uplifting, festive atmosphere. One young brahmachari stood out. He was thin, with glasses that made him look intellectual, and had a spontaneous, bright smile. He had a humble demeanor, but was also clearly a leader among the devotees. I came to learn that this was Jayad Deveta Das, a scholar assigned to edit Srila Prabhupada's book. One day I saw Jayad Deveta squatting on the staircase at the edge of the pond, watching the fish in the water. Hare Krishna, he greeted me with his characteristic smile. Did you come here to speak to me? Yes, I replied. I was wondering what you were doing. Trying to study the fish's psychology, he said, which made me laugh. They are living in their own world and don't have any idea that I'm watching them. Maybe that's how the demigods look at us while we are not aware of them, I suggested. And Krishna is watching the demigods while they are not aware of him, he said. Is that really true? Yes, they are not actually Krishna conscious.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you,
so much.
Prabhuji.
Okay, so now, Hare Krishna. Who else want to read? Please raise your hand so we can call their turn. Okay, Vaishnava Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Ramananda Swami was serving as Srila Prabhupada's secretary. He was a big, tall man, but had a very soft and tender disposition and developed a spontaneous appreciation for him. His brother, Garga Muni Dasa, was also followed him. Srila Prabhupada had appointed both of them as governing body commissioners. While Garga Muni was serving in India, Brahmananda was involved mainly in Africa. Although the two were brothers, their natures were quite different. Garga Muni was hard as nails. He was such an expert fundraiser that Srila Prabhupada jokingly called him Garga Muni. Brahmananda was less money conscious and more inclined towards developing friendly relationships. Before meeting Srila Prabhupada, he had been a remedial reader, teacher in New York, but like many other young people during that time, he had been attracted to the American counterculture and planned to go to India. One day, while passing the first Krishna temple at 26 2nd Avenue on New York's Lower East Side, he had seen a poster announcing Bhagavad Gita classes by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. He had wanted to meet Srila Prabhupada, which in those early days was not so difficult. Prabhupada was eager to meet young Americans and preach to them. When Brahmananda met Srila Prabhupada, he proudly told him that he had also read the Bhagavad Gita and pulled out a copy from his coat pocket. Prabhupada smiled as if quite impressed and asked him to open the book and read aloud. After about a page, Prabhupada asked him to close the book, which he did. Then Prabhupada asked, Now you tell me, what did you understood? Suddenly Brahmananda realized that he had not understood anything, and he admitted that to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada told him that just reading a book was not enough. One needed a teacher to explain the contents. Just that one encounter with Srila Prabhupada had convinced Brahmananda, and he had immediately committed himself to the Swami's mission. Hare Krishna.
Hare
3 days
Krishna.
before.
Yes, Mataji.
3 days
Yes,
before.
Mataji, 1 second. So we'll
Okay,
get
okay.
time to yes,
Okay,
Chandrapal
okay.
Mataji, you can read. I'll start.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
3 days before Gaur Purnima, Brahmananda Maharaj told me that Prabhupada had decided to give me first and second initiation, Harinam and Brahmana initiation together. Boy, you're fortunate, he said. I don't think anyone has received such mercy. The news came as both a big surprise and a big delight. Srila Prabhupada generally gave the Hare Krishna Mahamantra as the first initiation, and then after at least a year gave the Gayatri Mantra, second initiation, to deserving candidates. I knew devotees who had been in the movement for many years and still not received second initiation. And I felt deep gratitude towards Srila Prabhupada for bestowing such mercy upon me. I also felt thankful to Brahmananda Maharaj, and when I offered him my obeisances, he embraced me affectionately. When I asked what I needed to do to prepare myself for the initiation, he smiled and said, just get shaved and be ready to receive the mercy. The initiation took place on the morning of Gaur Purnima. More than 100 devotees sat around the sacrificial fire. Srila Prabhupada did not come down to the temple room, but a few sannyasis sat on a dais, called the candidates one by one, and heard our vows to follow the 4 regulative principles of not eating meat, taking intoxication, indulging in illicit sex, or gambling. We also promised to chant 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra on beads every day. One of the sannyasis, on behalf of Srila Prabhupada, would then give the candidate a string of chanting beads and announce his spiritual name, which Srila Prabhupada had chosen. Each name was met with loud applause and the beating of mridangas. When my turn came, Achyutananda Swami presided over my vows and announced my name, Shirachora Gopinath Das. The name indicated that I was the servant of Lord Gopinath, who stole Shira, condensed milk, for his devotee Mahendra Puri. The deity of Gopinath was in Ramona, Orissa. Mahendra Puri, the great devotee who had unearthed the deity of Gopal in Vrindavan and installed him on top of Govardhan Hill, had been told by Sri Gopal, Prabhu, I'm a little lost. By Sri Gopal, that because the heat of summer was causing him great discomfort, he wanted Mahendra to get some sandalwood and camphor and apply them to his body to keep him cool. Mahendra Puri went to Orissa and begged those valuable articles from the king. On the way, he stopped at Ramona to have darshan of Gopinath. In the temple, Mahendra Puri recalled that the kheer the temple priests offered to Gopinath was famous for its flavor, and he considered that if he could taste it, he would be able to prepare it for his Gopal as well. Right after the thought flashed across his mind, however, he realized that he had desired to taste the kheer even before it had been offered to Lord Gopinath. He felt extremely guilty and he left the temple and retired for the night in a deserted village marketplace nearby. When Gopinath's pujari took rest that night, he had a dream that Gopinath was telling him to go to the marketplace and give Madhavendra Puri some kheer. The pujari told Gopinath that all the kheer had already been distributed, but Gopinath said that he had kept aside a pot of kheer underneath his dhoti. So the pujari bathed and went to the temple, and there, to his utter amazement, he found the pot of kheer behind Gopinath's dhoti. From then on, Gopinath of Rimona was known as Kheer Chora Gopinath. I was very happy to have that name. It sounded like celestial music to my ears. And I was filled with gratitude that Srila Prabhupada had so mercifully made me a servant of Sri Sri Kheer Chora Gopinath. During the fire sacrifice, as I was offering grains to the fire and chanting Swaha, I felt I was offering Krishna everything I possessed. But then it occurred to me that I did not really possess anything. All that was worthwhile to offer was myself. So that was what I offered, Srila Prabhupada's voice echoed in my head. For many, many lifetimes you are trying to enjoy, but you can see you are still not satisfied. Just offer this life to Krishna. After initiation, I had to attend to Srila Prabhupada, so I did not have a chance to go out and collect Guru Dakshina, the monetary gift for one's Guru after initiation. In the evening, when the newly initiated devotees came to my room and each offered his Guru Dakshina, I regretted that I had not collected anything for him. When everyone left, I was alone with Prabhupada, my heart filled with remorse. Srila Prabhupada, I said to him, you gave me Diksha, but I did not offer you any Guru Dakshina. You offered me yourself. That is the best Guru Dakshina, he assured me. I offered my obeisances and said, Srila Prabhupada, I am offering myself to you completely. Please accept me and utilize me in whatever way you want. One morning, after I had taken dictation from Srila Prabhupada and had him sign the completed letters, he told me, I am appointing you as my secretary for Indian affairs. I was surprised, to say the least. I had been told that Prabhupada appointed only his most intimate and efficient associates as his secretaries. But I was just a new devotee, and he was giving me the most important assignment in his service. I felt both incredible joy and overwhelming gratitude.
Thank you, Madhaji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Madhaji. So, all very useful to read. Hare Krishna. Would anybody else like to read? Please raise your hands. Yes, Ved Singh Prabhu. Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes. Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada called Tamal Krishna Maharaj, told him about the new appointment and suggested that I move into the secretary's room where Maharaja was staying. Tamal Krishna put an affectionate hand on my shoulder, said, yes, Srila Prabhupada, and took me to the room 2 doors down. The room next to Prabhupada's was to have been his secretary's room, but the typewriter had made too much noise, so Prabhupada had suggested that his servant move in and his secretary take the room next door. There were 2 beds. Maharaja said I could use the one at the far end of the room and told me to fetch my belongings. When I informed my dear friend and roommate Tirthpad, he was at first silent. Then he told me that he had always felt that I was very special, and he embraced me and thanked me for my association as his roommate. I could see that he was feeling bad, and I knew that I too would miss our time together. It was quite an experience to be so close to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Although we were sharing a room, I still held him in great reverence. In fact, he commanded this kind of respect from practically everyone in ISKCON, but he treated me with warmth and affection. I would bow down to him and he would embrace me. He had been my hero even before I had met him, and this closeness was like a dream, one that I had never imagined would come true. Maharaja got up very early each morning, but he refrained from switching on the light so as not to disturb me. When he was in the bedroom, however, he would play tapes of Srila Prabhupada's lectures, and that would inevitably wake me up. I would just lie in bed listening to Prabhupada's transcendental voice until Maharaja was done, at which time I would rise and get ready for the day. Maharaja was extremely regulated and organized, waking up every day at 3, bathing, and then chanting his rounds. He would finish all his rounds and be ready to serve Srila Prabhupada by dawn. He organized me also, insisting that I have a specific time for translating, replying to Prabhupada's letters, and attending to his divine grace by just being him in case he needed anything, making sure that I always had enough time to work on translating Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita into Bengali. Roaming with Maharaj was one of my most memorable experiences in ISKCON. He always treated me lovingly, and he trained me expertly to serve Srila Prabhupada at the highest standard I could manage. In his presence, I was constantly learning new and important things about Krishna consciousness and serving Srila Prabhupada. Because of his seniority, I wanted to serve him too, but he always refused. Whenever I tried to serve him prasad, he would insist on me taking prasad with him. If a devotee serving him made a mistake, he would get upset and chastise him, but he never chastised me. When I related my experience to Bhavananda Maharaj, he commented with a smile, "You are fortunate. Tamal is known for his temper. That's why he's called Hot Tamal. Anyway, I can see that he has accepted you as his man. That is Tamal. When he likes somebody, he'll do anything for him. And you are one of those fortunate souls who has won his favor." I was delighted to hear this and told him, "You are also one of those fortunate souls. I notice what a deep friendship you have with him." Maharaj smiled and said, "Yes, that's true. We developed a deep friendship from the first time we met. He is a real person with a golden heart. That's why Srila Prabhupada loves him so much." Later, Tamal Krishna Maharaj told me that he had grown up in Harlem, a rough neighborhood in New York City, where he had often had to confront the local gangs, and that this upbringing had forced him to become tough. But I also saw how tender and loving a person he was, and the way he served Srila Prabhupada was an incredible example. I could see how much confidence Prabhupada had in him and how much he depended upon him.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Krishna. Yes, Parul Patel Mataji, please continue.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hari Shauri Prabhu had also come from a rough environment. My first impression of him was that he was somewhat reserved and not so friendly. Although we used to see each other frequently, I did not try to communicate with him beyond cordial smiles. Eventually, however, I came to see that he was just fixed in his service to Prabhupada and did not speak much unless there was a need. And as I became more involved in serving Prabhupada, we started to communicate more freely. Around the time, the Sannyasis, GBC of Australia, was having difficulties and left the movement. There was a need for someone to take up that responsibility, and I was told that Srila Prabhupada was considering appointing Hari Shauri. If he did, someone would have to take over his position as Prabhupada's personal servant. Hari Shauri suggested that it might be me. but I was waiting for Srila Prabhupada to make the decision. I also knew that one of his personal servants' most important services was to massage him, and I was not good at that. It needed someone strong like Hari Shora. One morning, Hari Shori asked me if I knew how to cook. Not thinking much about it, I replied that yes, I did. The next thing I knew, he had reported my ability to Srila Prabhupada, and soon afterwards he told me that Prabhupada wanted me to cook for him. But although I had told Hari Shori that I knew how to cook, I didn't think I was really good enough to cook for Prabhupada. When I was in Germany, I had cooked once in a while, but I knew that one had to be an expert, which I was not. I was stuck, totally perplexed. I did not know what to do. Then I had an idea. Srila Prabhupada's sister, Bisima, was there, and I had heard that she was one of the best cooks in the world and that she loved to cook for her brother. So I went to Bisima and told her the situation. She assured me that I should not worry and straight away went to the kitchen and started to cook. I just stood there watching. She did not let me touch a single thing. When it was time to serve, she prepared the plate and it looked really gorgeous. With many expertly cooked preparations, I happily took it to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada took one look at the plate and asked me who had cooked. From the tone of his voice, I could tell that he was not happy. Bisima, Srila Prabhupada, I replied. Did I ask you to cook or Bishima to cook? He asked. Then he told me to take the plate away. Trembling with fear and laden with guilt, I appealed to him. Please, Srila Prabhupada, I made a mistake. I'll never do it again. And I just stood there, wanting nothing else than to fall at his feet and beg for forgiveness, though I did not dare. He eventually became pacified, but I had lost a golden opportunity. Still, I continued to serve Prabhupada, and he was pleased with how I was replying to his letters. I was translating every day and reading the translation aloud to him, and he would make any corrections. The cooking incident, however, still weighed on my head. I had come so close to getting that wonderful service, but I had missed it due to my immaturity. I resolved that I would learn to cook so that if the opportunity ever again presented itself, I would not fail. One evening, I was in Srila Prabhupada's quarters, chanting while he was in his bedroom. I was chanting quite loudly, as if Prabhupada would be pleased to hear me. After a little while, however, he called me in and told me, "Don't chant so loudly." I felt guilty and embarrassed, and from then on, whenever I was near Prabhupada, I would chant very, very softly. A few days later, sitting alone in front of Prabhupada while he was leaning on his bolster and chanting on the beads, I asked Srila Prabhupada, "Can I learn Sanskrit?" He sat up straight and asked, "Why do you want to learn Sanskrit?" I thought for a moment and said, "In order to understand the scriptures properly, to get closer to Vedic culture," and Prabhupada cut me short. "There is no use," he said. "Your business is not to become a pandit. Our business is to become a devotee. Our business is to serve Krishna. There are so many Sanskrit scholars, but what are they doing? Are they promoting Vedic culture and wisdom of the Vedas? No, they are not doing anything useful. What is really needed is to preach Krishna consciousness. And to do that, you don't need to learn Sanskrit. You don't need to learn anything besides who Krishna is and what is your relationship with him." Then he added, "Just read my books and you will learn Sanskrit." Hare Krishna.
Sorry, I was on mute. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Anybody else wants to read who has not read before? Then please raise your hand. Those who have not read till now, I don't know if it's showing, but they read. So, okay. So I'll just finish. I will read the last part and go ahead with it. This question I also asked Guru Maharaj during my earlier time, that Guru Maharaj wants to learn Sanskrit, and Guru Maharaj told me the same thing, that we don't want to become a pandit, and he said that you read Srila Prabhupada's books and you will learn Sanskrit. But unlike him, I haven't learned anything in Sanskrit. So I will read now. Srila Prabhupada's health had been bad for months. One second. Srila Prabhupada's health had been bad for months since he had returned to India, and now it was deteriorating rapidly. He stopped going out for his usual morning walks, and he needed help just going to the toilet. In Mayapur, his quarters did not have an attached bath. It was at the end of the block of rooms. Even using his cane, he needed whoever was attending him to support him by reaching around his waist with one hand and holding his left shoulder with the other. But although his health was bad, he did not want to take any treatment. He did not like allopathic medicine, and he felt that Ayurvedic treatment did not work because the herbs had lost their potency and the doctors were quacks. Still, when Abhiram Prabhu arranged for a famous Ayurvedic doctor, Dr. Vimalanand Tark Tirtha, to come to Mayapur to treat him, he agreed. Dr. Tark Tirtha was an old man, perhaps in his late 80s, and semi-blind. Although the doctor had brought his servant with him, Srila Prabhupada wanted me to take care of him as well. Tarkatirtha, he told me, had been a great Ayurvedic doctor in his time, maybe the best in Calcutta, but had entered into politics and become a member of the West Bengal Legislative Assembly, effectively ending his career. Dr. Tarkatirtha was pleasant but somewhat reserved. From his appearance and composure, one could tell that he had come from an aristocratic background. I brought him to Srila Prabhupada's room every morning and evening, and he would examine Prabhupada intently, feeling his pulse and then prescribe medicine. It was hard to tell how seriously Srila Prabhupada took Dr. Tarkatirtha for his treatment, but the two had long, intimate talks. Dr. Tarkatirtha was a few years older than Prabhupada, but they were from the same city and had known each other when they were younger. I could see how they were enjoying each other's association. One evening after his treatment, Srila Prabhupada was speaking to Dr. Tarkatirtha about the condition of Kali Yuga, our current age, how everything would deteriorate. And he asked me to get the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam from his desk. The 12th canto had not yet been translated, so Srila Prabhupada wanted me to get the Sanskrit version. When I fetched it, he asked me to turn to the second chapter and read aloud. So I started to read the Sanskrit verses, and he gave the translation and affirmed the accuracy of the statements. In the age of Kali, the relationship between men and women would be based solely on sex. Families would be reduced just the husband and wife, and no one would take care of their elder family members. Married sons will leave their parents and move away, and even the relationship between husband and wife would last only for a short while. Marriages would be based on sexual compatibility and sealed only with verbal agreements. There would be rampant promiscuity and no spousal loyalty. A man's appearance would be judged by the length of his hair. He pointed out how in America and Europe, young men were growing their hair long, and how that had become the deciding factor for their physical attractiveness. Prabhupada described how robbers would become rulers. They would extract money from the subjects through taxes, and the people would become so disillusioned that they would run away from the cities and villages to escape the exploitation. The condition of the earth would become so precarious that cows would stop giving milk. Grain-bearing plants would become like plain grass, and fruit would have no pulp. After Dr. Tarkatirtha left, Srila Prabhupada asked me where I had learned Sanskrit. Remembering the incident when I had asked him whether I could learn it, I understood that he was assuring me that I could just by reading his book. One evening, after Dr. Tarkatirtha had checked Srila Prabhupada and they were sitting together, Prabhupada started to speak about his life. He told the doctor how his friend Naren Malik had come one day and invited him to go see a sadhu. Srila Prabhupada had not had much respect for the so-called sadhus because he had seen how his father had invited them into his home, but they would come in just to eat and collect a donation. So he declined. Naren, however, had been insistent that Srila Prabhupada should go with him, telling him that this sadhu was not that kind of a sadhu. He was high class and learned. Eventually, Prabhupada had relented and agreed to go. That sadhu, he told Dr. Tarti, had ended up being Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada's spiritual master. And at their very first meeting, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had instructed him to take up the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to spread Krishna consciousness in English all over the world. Srila Prabhupada had initially tried to resist Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's instruction. First, India had to become independent, he had objected. Until then, no one would take her message seriously. In response, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had told him that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings were far beyond political, social, geographical, or even religious considerations. They were from another world, not dependent on any condition of material nature. Afterwards, when Naren had asked him for his opinion of the sadhu, Srila Prabhupada had replied, now that the responsibility of spreading Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message had come to such a person, he is bound to do something about it. Just from that first meeting, Srila Prabhupada had been so impressed with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta that he had decided to accept him as a spiritual master and take up that instruction as his life's mission. Hare Krishna. So, thank you so very much. It is so blissful to read this ocean of mercy that we feel like going again and again. And I will read a very wonderful quote Srila Prabhupada gave on the meaning of association. I was discussing with a devotee today morning only, and I discussed with him how this quote from Prabhupada is so wonderful about initiation, about what is the meaning of initiation. 1 second, I will take. I will just give me 1 second. Take that wonderful quote. Sorry, I can't see that quote. Hare Krishna, Rani Prabhu, can you send me that quote?
Yes, Prabhu, I'm sending you again.
There's so many messages I have with you, I can't find. So, yes, this is the quote. This is a very wonderful quote, and which we can take it to our heart. Rani Prabhu, please put it in the chat also, so devotees can copy it if they feel inspired. It says, quote, if you are serious, that is real initiation. If you have understood this Krishna philosophy, and if you decided that you will take Krishna consciousness seriously and preach the philosophy to others, that is your initiation. My touch is simply a formality. It is your determination that is initiation. From a conversation in New York, publishing Back to God at Magazine, 49. So, with that small quote from Srila Prabhupada, we'll end this class now. Thank you so very much. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Dev Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashat Deshitari Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.